The S22 Ultra to me is an excellent but boring phone. And this is coming from someone that is a long-time Samsung user. And in fact, I was really excited to upgrade to this S22 Ultra from the SM Plus when I was putting in my pre-order earlier this year. Besides the obtrusive camera bump on the back and the lack of a headphone jack, this phone here is basically an upgrade in every meaningful way compared to my trusty S10 Plus. The hardware and raw performance of this device are excellent, but that's to be expected given that this is a flagship class device that's designed to compete with the iPhones and Pixels of this world. But just after a mere few weeks with this phone, I find myself craving for something more. And I found that really odd because I don't remember feeling that uninterested that quickly with my S10 Plus when I upgraded to it from the Note 8 in 2019. So for months now, I've been staring at the script for this video and not knowing what to say for this review because I knew very early on that the S22 Ultra is both an amazing and capable phone, but so was my outgoing S10 Plus. Essentially, I was stuck on this writer's block where I couldn't find a creative or meaningful way to summarize this phone in a review without sounding like I'm just blurting out a bunch of buzzwords like 120Hz display, 10x telephoto camera, or S Pen. But that all changed during my recent trip back to Phoenix, where this phone felt more like a liability than an actual companion to me. So the entire problem was with the battery endurance. I was naive enough to think that my 10,000 mAh power bank was enough for my day-long round trip to Phoenix. That meant that I didn't bring a charger for my phone or my power bank. And what I did during that trip with my phone wasn't anything intensive by any stretch of the imagination. It was just typical stuff like Google Maps navigation while I was driving, listening to music whilst I was on the plane, taking pictures of my travels, and a good chunk of doom scrolling on Twitter. This battery user screenshot here shows my battery life from 6 AM when I unplugged my phone off the power bank in Phoenix all the way to 11 PM when I was back here in Seattle. So as you can see, I started charging it a couple hours into the morning because I could already foresee that at the rate that the battery was draining, I would have had a dead phone by the time I really needed it at the airport for my boarding pass onto the plane. Suffice to say, this situation here was super frustrating, especially given that I was on a pretty tight schedule during that trip where I had places to go and things to do. And needing to kind of babysit my phone's battery was just extra overhead that I did not have time to entertain. Now you might be asking, what's so hard about lugging my phone around with a power bank attached to it? And my answer to that is, it's not so hard, but when I buy a big and expensive phone, I expect it to last me throughout the day. And yes, I could have turned on power saving mode to conserve battery, but I didn't do that because my power bank still had a bar or two of battery left to spare. Overall, this whole conundrum left me feeling a little bit salty that a flagship smartphone like this isn't able to keep up with my battery needs. And before you go down in the comments and saying, oh, it's probably some app that you have that is draining your battery, that's why you were getting bad battery life. I have actually gone through most of the tweaks listed in this comprehensive optimization guide on the XDA forums. And really the only thing that's left is for me to factory reset my phone, which I'm reluctant to do as I just hate setting up my phone from scratch because I have everything all set up already. Yeah, I'm definitely not getting the 7 to 8 hours of screen on time on a single charge that I see other reviewers rave all about. So that's that. Okay, this video is starting to sound like a rant all about battery life, but this trip back to Phoenix felt like a pivotal moment to me as it made me realize the importance of evaluating a smartphone kind of beyond its spec sheet. And it also questioned my need for a flagship class device given that these days I mostly use my phone to scroll through Twitter or to take food photos, because at the end of the day, I'm not using this phone to marvel at the fact that the fingerprint sensor is 500 milliseconds faster to unlock, or the fact that the camera can zoom into objects that are several meters away without any loss in visual quality. I'm using this phone to get things done in my life, things like snapping photos of wild animals that I see in the neighborhood, or using Google Maps navigation whilst taking a conference call without burning through the battery life, or even just scrolling through my Twitter timeline on a bright summer day. Like seriously, I'm really impressed with the display on the S22 Ultra. Viewing this display on a bright summer day feels like the content is burned right onto the screen itself. It's that good. But really though, other than the battery woes, the S22 Ultra has managed to keep up with most of my demands. I found myself using the pair of telephoto cameras on the back more than I expected to, and the software for the most part has been pretty stable. I have experienced a few weird UI glitches here and there, but nothing ended up being a recurring issue. However, I do wish that One UI was a bit more exciting though. One UI on the S22 Ultra looks and feels exactly like One UI on my previous S10 Plus, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but the software experience is starting to wear on me. Alright, before I wrap up this review, I need to talk about the S Pen. because it is one of the marquee features of the S22 Ultra. And you know what? I haven't used the S Pen for months now, and the only reason why I take it out of its silo on the bottom here is to show other people that my phone has an integrated stylus. And the big reason why is because I don't sketch or draw, nor do I have a habit of writing notes. I prefer typing my notes out as my handwriting is pretty horrendous. I do, however, annotate a ton of screenshots throughout the week at work, but that's on my computer. But even if I wanted to annotate something with a stylus, I would do it on my iPad with the Apple Pencil, which is arguably a more ergonomic setup compared to my S22 Ultra and the S Pen. Beyond writing and drawing, the S Pen itself also works as a remote trigger for the camera, but that to me feels like something that I'll only use like once or twice a year. Now don't get me wrong, it's a neat feature to have, but it's just not every day I need to take photos from a distance with the S Pen. As for how the S22 Ultra has held up to my daily usage after 6 months, it has fared pretty well. I've been using this phone exclusively with a case, mainly because I'm just not a fan of the protruding camera lens array on the back. Currently, I'm using the Dick Wyn grip case with their special edition something skin, and on the front, I don't have a screen protector applied. The screen still looks pristine even after a couple of unintentional drops to the ground, but one thing that's of a concern to me is the amount of dust that the individual camera rings on the back are attracting, even if I have a case on it. Going back to what I mentioned at the start of the video, the S22 Ultra is an excellent phone. If you're looking for top-of-the-line specs with long-term software support, this phone might be the one for you. As for me personally, I'm always chasing after the latest and greatest in tech, so I feel that the $800 that I spent on this phone after my trade-in was a fair value. And out of all the Samsung phones that I've used over the years, the S22 Ultra does have the most well-rounded and stable feature set out of the box. That kind of made my experience with the S22 Ultra a little bit boring. Boring in the sense that there isn't anything on this phone that's kind of changing its status quo. I guess that's kind of expected given that Samsung is betting big on the foldables category with their Z Fold and Z Flip series. But make no mistake here, if I were to go back in time, I would still do the same thing and get the S22 Ultra. The original tagline that I created for this review was my last phone before foldables, but I kind of abandoned that idea midway through as I kind of felt like my novelty towards using foldable phones will end up being like how I used my S Pen on this phone here. Also, I've been meaning to break my long-time chain of using Samsung phones, not because I don't like my Samsung phones, but because I feel like I'm missing out on something by just sticking with just one phone brand. But anyway, thanks for watching this video. I hope you found my review of the S22 Ultra informative. Let me know down in the comment section if you have any questions about the S22 Ultra, and I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, I hope to see you very soon in the next video.